Hello everyone. So for this pre-recorded screen presentation we will be talking about methods of research, data collection, and data gathering tools. So please accept my apology if there are background noises that you will be hearing along the way kasi po I'm recording this at our office or in our office. Okay? So, my name is Ernie Avila, a faculty member of PUP Ragay branch, and this is my email address kasi if you are not my student and you want to know about research, so you can consult to me via this email indicated in the screen. Okay? So, to continue, when we say research design or method, meron po kasing libro na ang ginagamit nila ay method, meron namang libro na ang ginagamit nila is research design. So as a researcher, ginagamit natin ang research design or ang research method as our plan. So may plano kasi tayo pag nagkakandak dapat ng research. Kasi po, you don't formulate only the title. As you formulate the title, as you formulate your research objectives, dapat na-anticipate mo na what are the activities that you have to undergo in order for you to complete your research, in order for you to gather the data, in order for you to analyze the data. So, kaya kailangan natin ng research design. At depende sa uri ng datang kukunin natin ang uri ng research design na gagamitin natin. Okay? And ang research design is categorized siya by the two, which will be tackled eventually. So this research design gives all the procedures that you need to undergo as a researcher when you collect and analyze the data. And remember, as an educator or as a social science researcher, kailangan natin masolve ang problema natin sa field. Using a different ways, pwede tayo mag-generate ng different solution to our problems. That is why you can utilize research design that you want, depending on the nature of data available. Okay? And then, ang basic research designs natin are categorized on the way on how you will generate the information, how you will collect those, what kind of tools that you intend to use, and then how you will synthesize and analyze the data. Okay? So the first kind of research design is quantitative or quantitative. So when we say quantitative research design, nagdi-deal siya sa numbers. Okay, and ang objective nito is either you compare, you describe, or to determine the attributes of causality. So, ulitin ko, magdi-describe ka ng property ng isang data or ng population mo or ng sample mo. You will compare the samples, the groups, and then the characteristics of the group, and attribute the causality kung isang variable ba ay nagko-cause ng effect to another variable. Ang premise po nito is that lahat ng variable natin can be represented by a number. So, pwede siyang i-represent by a number. So, halimbawa, binigyan kayo ng questionnaire ngayon to determine your attitude. So, ang premise natin doon, using the scale of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 4, 3, 2, 1, you can give now the attribute or the characteristic of your attitude depending on the level or depending on the perception whether that particular value correspond to your perception. Okay? Para sa quantitative research design, ginagamitan ito kadalasan ng mean. Okay, and ang mean, this is a measure of central tendency. We're comparing whether one case or one part of the representation or one part of the population, ano yung kanyang characteristic compared to the whole or totality. And then we are also using the standard deviation meaning to say gaano pa bago-bago yung mean ng ating sample. Okay? So, we will be talking about different types of quantitative research design. The first type is tinatawag nating quantitative descriptive. When we say quantitative descriptive, ang ginagawa ng researcher dito is binibigyan niya si respondent ng questionnaire, and then si respondent or yung taong sumagot ng questionnaire or ng instrument, checkan niya yung instrument na yon depende sa kanyang level that correspond to the numerical values ng instrument na yon. And eventually, si researcher ay magtatali at i-generate niya yung mean and standard deviation. Okay? And ngayon, i-compare ngayon ni researcher dito kung gaano kalayo or gaano nag-vary yung score ng kanyang sagot dun sa instrument to the totality. Okay? So, another one is comparative research. Quantitative comparative research. When we say comparative, we are determining whether similarities or differences or relationship of two or more variables are present in your sample or in your population. So, ang ginagamit ditong statistical treatment for social sciences are, first is, for differences, gumagamit tayo ng chi-square, ANOVA, and Whitney-Mann-U test, Kruskal-Wallis one-way ANOVA. So, siguro na-encounter nyo na to along the way when you're having your statistics during your senior high school and college days. For the relationship, ang ginagamit dito is chi-square kasi ang chi-square po is may iba't ibang uri, depende sa test. Pearson product moment of coefficient correlation and Spearman law. So yung chi-square at Spearman law are non-parametric, meaning to say, pag non-parametric, ginagamit natin yung ranking nung data. Pero kapag parametric, which is Pearson product moment of coefficient correlation, ang ginagawa natin dito is tinitreat natin mismo yung data. Okay? And then for agreement, bira lang gumagamit ng agreement na to. So, Kendall coefficient of concordance W and corresponding chi-square. Okay, if you want to know more about this, probably within next video presentations that I'll be posting, I might be giving you tutorial on how to compute chi-square, how to compute ANOVA, and Whitney-Mann-U test, and others as well. Okay, so for the third one is experimental design. So when we say experimental design, we are looking for the causation or kung yung attribute na yan is nagko-cause ng effects, ng improvement or differences. Okay? So yung variable natin is, tinitingnan natin if that variable gives an effect to the other variable ng study natin. So, ang independent variable natin dito is usually yun yung tinitreat natin or ginagamit natin sa experiment, and then tinitingnan natin yung effect ng independent variable na yun sa dependent variable. So, kung hindi kayo familiar with the independent and dependent variable, so when we say independent variable or experimental variable, ito yung minamanipulate ng researcher. Okay? So, halimbawa, meron kayong teacher, gumagamit si teacher ng iba't ibang instructional materials, and gustong malaman ni teacher if alin dun sa instructional materials niya ang better, so mag-experiment siya. Pipiliin niyo yung the best depending on the performance of the students. So, kung meron siyang 4 na instructional materials, meron siyang 4 sections, titingnan niya which among the section niya fared or which among the section is better in terms of post-test ngaya. So, that is now the experimental variable. And when we say dependent variable naman, ito yung effects. Ito yung pagbabago due to experiments. Okay? So, for the analysis of this experimental design, we're using t-test and ANOVA and z-test. Okay? So, t-test, c-test are non-parametric while ANOVA is a parametric one. T-test is a parametric also sometimes. Okay? So, maraming uri sa experimental design for education. Ito yung kadalasan ginagamit for action researches. The first type of experimental design is single group. Okay, when we say single group, one group of cases lang to. So, meaning to say, kung meron ka isang section ng estudyante, isang grupo lang siya ng estudyante. That is single group design. So, ang ginagawa natin is, may different method ka. So, for week 1 ngayon, or week 1, ito yung ginamit mong method for the entire class. Okay? Second week, ibang method naman. Third week, ibang method naman. Fourth week, ibang method. So, paano mo malalaman kung which method is better? So, ang gagawin mo is, gagamit ka ngayon, kukunin mo yung mga post-test nila after at the end of the week, and titingnan mo kung among those methods, saan magaling yung performance ng bata or yung mean nung klase. Okay? So, ang pangalawang uri na experimental design is two group. So, for two groups, dalawa na instead of one. So, ang nangyayari dito sa two groups, kino-compare natin yung performance ng dalawa. The other one is experimental, yung bibigyan mo na experiment, while the other group is tinatawag natin control, traditional lang yung ginagawa natin. So, sa education, kung sa teaching, nagagawa kayo na action research, nagtithesis kayo, tapos ang research design ninyo is two groups. So, two groups. So, ang gagawin ninyo is, here, may isang section ka na gagamitan mo ng treatment. Halimbawa, PowerPoint presentation for section 1. And, pangalawa is module lang. So, the module is the normal one. While the traditional one, ang tawag natin is control group, which is section 2. And then section 1 is yung may PowerPoint, which is the experimental. And, ang mangyayari dito is kukunin natin yung post-test ng dalawang grupo and eventually we will compare them. Ano po? So, the other type of experimental design is two-pair group design. Kung saan, ang ginagawa natin is ine-extend natin yung two groups kanina. Meron pa tayong idadagdag na another group of experimental and another group of control. So, lahat sila bibigyan mo ng post-test, pero yung control 1, experimental 1 ay may post-test, may pre-test, pero yung pangalawang control and experimental group ay walang post-test. And of course, ang treatment ay para lang sa experimental group, and then ang traditional way of teaching ngayon is for the control group. Halimbawa, meron kang 4 na plot ng petchay, ginamitan mo ng bagong fertilizer, yung dalawa. So, that is your experimental, and then the other one is control. Yung traditional, wala kang nilagay na fertilizer. And you will compare its improvement in terms nga of length of the stem, the width of the leaves, the length of the roots, ganon. Okay? So, another experimental design is parallel group. When we say parallel group, 2 or more groups are used at the same time. So, ang ginagawa natin dito, minamanipulate natin, nagja-jump yung researcher. Halimbawa, sa parallel group natin is meron kang tatlong experimental group, pero for week 1, ang gagamitin mo dito is treatment 1. Iba yung treatment sa tatlong experimental group. So, week 1 ngayon is gumagamit tayo ng, sabihin natin, PowerPoint presentation sa klase ng section 1. Sa week 2, iba naman. Week 3, iba naman. So, magkakaiba siya. Pero tinitingnan natin dito yung kanyang post-test and iti-test natin siya gamit ang ANOVA. Okay, next is yung tinatawag nating pre-test, post-test design. So, dito, experimental and control group siya. I-measure mo muna yung performance before and after ng treatment. Bakit? Kasi kinukuha natin dito yung improvement. Okay, and kukunin din natin dito yung differences. So may kita nyo na yung isa ay para silang may pre-test, para silang may post-test, pero yung isa is walang treatment. Okay, ang ginagamit dito is t-test. Paano gumamit ng t-test? Tanong kayo sa statistician ninyo, or kung wala kayong statistician, your research advisor, if wala, maraming available example in the internet. Okay? Next one is counterbalance or LSD. Pag sinabi natin counterbalance, this is for a simple term, ang counterbalance is umiikot siya, yung treatment. So, halimbawa, meron kang 4 na teacher sa math for that school. Yeah, 4 na section. Iba-iba yung teacher nila sa math. And then, yung for week 1, ang ginawa ng teacher is gumamit siya ng, si teacher 1 is gumamit siya ng ganitong treatment. Si teacher 2 ng section 2 is iba yung treatment. Si teacher 3 ng section 3 ay iba din yung treatment, and so on. Pag second week, yung treatment ni teacher 4, doon sa section 4 ay gagamitin ngayon ni teacher 1, at yung ginamit ni teacher 1 ay gagamitin ni teacher 2, and so on. Pag week 3, yung ginamit ni teacher 4 ay gagamitin ulit ngayon ni teacher 1, and then yung ginamit ni teacher 1, which is yung pinakaunang ginamit ni teacher 4, ay gagamitin ngayon ni teacher 2. Hanggang matapos nila yung pag-ikot. That is counterbalance. And at the end of the week, i-measure nila yung performance ng bata gamit ang post-test. Okay? That is LSD. At ang ginagamit nito to measure the differences of all performances of all control groups or experimental group rather is ANOVA or analysis of variance. Okay. This is the second type of research which is not involving or that does not involve or walang numbers na ginagamit. Ang tawag natin dito is Qualitative Research Design. So, anong meron kay Qualitative Research Design? So, ang premise naman nito is yung observation natin is ang nangyayari, yung tao kasi is nagre-reveal siya ng kanyang behavior in his or her natural world. So, ang ginagawa natin is ikaw as a researcher is becoming part of that group. Okay? So, halimbawa, in this design, ang ginagamit natin dito is verbal, not numerical. So, tinitingnan natin yung activities and events, and then tinitingnan natin yung behavior ng individuals or ng tao while experiencing that event or while they are in that situation or place. Okay, and eventually, magbi-build tayo ng bigger picture so that we can develop a theory, a procedure, or a policy out of that. Okay? So, ang qualitative research design, sobrang dami na to. Pero po, ang basic purpose lang ng qualitative research design is to either describe, interpret, to verify, and evaluate. And we are generating the idea what is really happening. Okay? And si teacher, kung ikaw ay teacher, ang focus mo dito is to provide insight. Why is it that the students ngayon are failing? Why they are changing their behavior? Why you need to refine your teaching skills? Okay? And then interpretative analysis po can give a new set of theory and it can verify the assumptions happened in the past as well as generalizations. And of course, pwede din siyang gamitin about policies, practices, and innovation. Okay? So, ang qualitative research design, ang method nito is first, you will observe the participant. Kung hindi you observe, pwede din siyang i-interview. The second one is you will scan the record and files. Meaning to say, pwede mong balikan yung record ng participant mo. Okay? Bakit participant? Pag quantitative, ang tawag natin is respondent or research subject kapag naman experimental, respondent kung descriptive research. Pag qualitative, ang tawag natin sa kanya is participant. Okay? Pwede din tayong gumamit ng checklist. So, halimbawa, tinitingnan mo yung behavior niya, yung kanyang physical attributes, kunyari. So, halimbawa, nagngangat-ngat siya ng daliri while you are having your interviews, or that person is having an interview with you. So, pwede mo siyang checkan using your checklist and conducting case studies. So, ang premise po nito is people act naturally in isolation. So, kung nailagay mo siya sa isang situation, pwedeng affected na yung kanyang natural behavior. That is why if you're conducting a qualitative research, you have to get the trust of your participants so that they can show to you fully their behavior, their normal behavior. Okay? So, ano halimbawa nito? Kung kayo ay mag-undergo ng quali, kunyari, pupuntahan nyo ang IP group or Indigenous Peoples Group, tapos, magiging part kayo ng grupo nila para maipakita nila sa inyo ang pinaka-characteristic na gusto nyong makita. And you need to be part of their group for about a month. Minsan, ang mga nagka-qualitative researchers, especially the ethnographic researchers, ay nakikihalubilo sa kanila for about months, years before they can generate the data. And kung ganang klaseng research, pangit na nakikita nila na nagsusulat ka. Kasi they will know that you are conducting a research about them. Okay? So, ayan yung mga example. So, I'll give you ideas on the sampling. When we say sampling, this is the process of selecting a sample. Ano ang sample? Pag sinabi nating sample, ito yung tao, event, or things na ginagamit natin as source of data. And then, population naman is the group of people, object, or events kung saan kinuha natin yung sample. Bakit kailangan natin kumuha ng sample or bakit may sampling? Kasi sobrang laki ng population. Example, 5,000 yung population ng isang lugar na pupuntahan mo. So, kung lahat mo sila interviewin, mamamatay ka na siguro pag tally pa lang. Or pag interview pa lang, or pag bigay ng questionnaire. So, what you need to do is to get a sample. And meron tayong formula dyan. Ang ginagamit na formula in sampling are, the first one is Slovene, and then the other one is Cochrane formula. Okay, pwede kayo magpaturo sa advisor nyo about that. So, for the sampling, pwede din ninyo itong gamitin na ang principle ni Guy in 1976. Sabi niya, ang minimum acceptable sample for descriptive is 10%. So, kung 10% of 5,000 tao is 10% is 50. Okay, kung 5,000, kung 500 na tao, 10% is 50. Kung 10% of 5,000, di 500. Kung 5 million, di 100,000. Okay, so that is 10%. So 20% po may be required for a smaller population. Kung halimbawa, 20 tao lang naman, kaya mo na siguro siyang buuin. Pero kung 200, pwedeng 20% of that, which is 40. Okay? And then correlational research is 30%. For experimental is 30 subject per group. And pag experimental and correlational dapat medyo equal yung number of research subjects. Okay? So, maraming uri ang sampling. The first one is probability. Simplihan ko na lang, probability is binigyan mo ang lahat ng member ng population ng chance, ng chance to become part of your study. Okay, that is probability sampling. So, another one is non-probability sampling. Dito, ang ginagawa natin is, pinipili mo lang yung magjo-join or magpa-participate. Depende sa convenience mo. So, alin ang mas better? Mas better pa rin ang probability sampling. Pero kung qualitative research, much better ang non-probability sampling. Okay, so ito ang comparison niya, nakalagay sa table. First is, pag probability sampling, pwede mo siyang gamitan ng simple random sampling. So, may detailed presentation ako neto. So, pwedeng, kung 500 na tao, sinulat mo yung pangalan nila, ginunting mo or ginupit mo yung pangalan nila, nilagay mo sa fishbowl, binunot mo. So, ang tawag natin doon is lottery method. Use of table of random numbers. Nasa likuran to ng statistical books. So, sinulatan mo or inassign mo yung numbers nung 1 to 500 na tao, tapos nakita mo sa table of random number na ito yung number. So, ang mangyayari is, yun yung magiging part ng research mo. Diba? 0, 1. So, 1. So, kukunin mo yung 1. So, notice, nakita mo sa table of random numbers, 23, 1. So, kukunin mo yung 23, and then yung 1. So, nakuha mo na kanina yung 1, so hindi na siya kasali. So, may rules din ang paggamit ng table of random numbers. Next is systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. Pag non-probability sampling, accidental or convenience, sila yung naabutan mo lang that time. So, accidental. Or convenience, nakita mo lang siya sa daan, convenience sampling na yun. Pag purposive, grupo lang ng ganitong tao ang pinuntahan mo. That is purposive. Pinili mo lang yung group or yung tao. Pag quota sampling, kailangan mo lang ng 30 na tao. Kanyari, quota yon 30 lang. So, pag, di ba, nag-interview ko na, 30 lang kinuha mo, tapos na. Okay? Snowball sampling naman is yung sampling kung saan itinuturo nung nauna mong participant or respondent yung pwedeng maging respondent. So, tinanong mo siya, sino pa po kaya ang pwedeng interviewin namin dito na ganito yung condition? So, ituturo niya yung isa, tapos yung panibagong nakuha mong respondent or participant, nagtuturo siya ng panibago. So, snowball. Nauntol siya. And networking sampling naman, ang nangyayari sa networking sampling is, yan, may network lang ng tao kung sino lang yung pwede mong maging participant or respondent. Okay? So, ang data gathering tool natin, balikan natin to. Sa quantitative research, pag survey questionnaire, this is for descriptive. So, yon, survey questionnaire ang tawag natin doon sa instrument. Pre-test, post-test for experimental kung sa batak. Intelligence and psychological test. Ito yung ginagamit natin pag-a-apply sa trabaho or pag-a-apply sa school. Diba? Mag-a-apply ka kunyari sa university for transfer, so kailangan kang mag-undergo ng psychological test. Next is measurement using measuring tools such as ruler, meter stick, ganon. And then, observation guide. While for qualitative research, pwedeng interview guide. What is interview guide or schedule interview guide? So, ito po yung nakalista na yung possible na tanong, ibibigay mo lang during your focus group discussion. And then, may leading question ka doon kung saan mag-e-exhaust or may exhaust natin yung sagot ng tao. Okay, this is qualitative. Naka-ready na yung tanong. And then, for case study guide, dito sa case study is, meron ka lang na kailangan gawin or hanapin. So, kadalasan ng case studies guide ay ginagawa natin for a single group of person or individual, a single place, etc. Okay? So, I think that ends my presentation. If you have question or if this presentation suits your interest, you may email me for other possible video presentations as well. Thank you so much for listening.